This is Beyond a Reasonable Doubt with your hosts, Mark Garrigus and Gary Smith.
Well, welcome, GPS. How are you on this wonderful Sunday edition of Bard?
I'm great, Mark. How are you?
I could not be better. It's a long weekend, and so far it's been great. How about you? You got plans?
Yeah, this is my father's birthday weekend, so happy birthday to my father, and we're going to be getting together as a family to celebrate him. And other than that, just sort of laying low, trying to keep the house clean and keep the toddler occupied.
I love it. I love it. Very good. So last week we did, amongst other things, and I'd love to return to it because we've got the closing arguments on Tuesday as we come out for the Trump trial. But the little Crockett, Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, back and forth has inspired a couple of different versions of songs. And I thought that it's a good, maybe we could use them as bookends. So we could play one in the beginning and then we'll talk Trump trial and then end with one. What's your pick to curate the first?
You know, I think we're going to start with the gospel one just because it's super fun. And I like the, we'll give a shout out to Rita Brent Comedy on social media. Rita Brent is the person who came up with this one, and it's pretty good. So let's take a listen.
She got a bleach blonde, bad blue butch body. She got a bleach blonde, bad blue butch body. That Marjorie Taylor Greene looked like a lima bean, and forgot she had a bleach blonde, bad blue butch body. Representative Jasmine's about that line. She about that, and she looks like she can really fight. An amazing politician, ain't got no competition. Ain't worried about a bleach blonde, bad built butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body. Marjorie tried to cause a scene, forgot she had a butch body.
It goes on a little bit longer from there, but we don't need to play the whole thing.
Very clever. I didn't think you could do these parodies anymore, but apparently I'm wrong. No,
I mean it's certainly a specific lane, and I don't think everyone's got it down. But again, shout out to Rita Baker. That's pretty good. Rita Brent, my mistake. Rita Brent. I want to make sure I give the right credit.
We've got Tuesday. We've got closing arguments in the Trump trial in New York for 34 counts, supposedly, or the allegation is that the books were manipulated in such a way as to do a mask yet another crime, which is the way that it's elevated from misdemeanors to felonies. I think we talked a little bit about this before, but the jury instructions and the verdict forms are going to be determinative, obviously, here, but more so whether or not what the jurors had to make of the evidence that they saw. I mean, I still am of the opinion, and it is an art, not a science, that based on what I've heard about the jurors and who they are, that the best case scenario for the defense is a hung jury. I don't think that you're talking acquittal here.
No, an acquittal seems pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting too. Unfortunately, because the case is not televised, it's hard to know whether the kind of sense of the witnesses, you're getting it filtered through, and at least I get it filtered through. Virtually all the commentators that I see are all ex-prosecutors and kind of anti or pro-prosecution, I should say. One of my big complaints about the party that is the current Democratic Party is that it has become the cheerleader for the prosecution. And so,
well, and to your point, you're someone who, and to a lesser extent, I'm someone who's really in the weeds and trying to consume this. And I saw a polling that said that, 40%, I believe, of the people who said they were aware of this trial could not correctly identify what the charges were and what the allegations were. So, for the people who are not in the weeds and trying to consume this stuff, there's just really a lack of awareness surrounding this trial, it would seem.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem is it's highly likely right now that this is the only criminal trial that's going to take place before the election.
It's virtually a certainty, no?
Well, I suppose there's always some world. I mean, the classified documents case, I don't think has any shot of being tried before November. And Georgia, clearly, if you're going to handicap it, that's the least likely case to go to trial.
Right.
Most likely, probably the DC case. And I think that's unlikely if I had to handicap it, although not for a lack of trying.
Right.
But the problem is that you've got a state court case that isn't televised, and it is a rather attenuated legal theory that most people, lay people, even most pundits, can't really articulate. It's been called in the vernacular the hush money trial. It's really not a hush money trial. It's a trial about a legal theory that the books were
it's a business records trial, for lack of a better term, no?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And the only way that you fit this within the statute of limitations is that it had to be elevated to a felony. Otherwise, the misdemeanor accounts would have already expired.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of where we're at now. Having seen jury selection, and I admit to not being in the courtroom, I admit that very few people who are on the defense side of the aisle are at least being employed as commentators in this case. So it's extremely difficult to understand what the varying reactions to things. I'll give you a perfect example. There was Anderson Cooper reacting to Michael Cohen. Anderson has a kind of a viewpoint. I think I know Anderson's viewpoint well enough to know that I thought it was significant that his view of Michael Cohen and the so-called aha Perry Mason moment when Michael Cohen was confronted with the 14-year-old situation and the spoofing, so to speak, that undercut the testimony he gave on direct. Now, you then compare that with some of the other former prosecutors who are commenting on this case, who basically will tell you it was a nothing burger, the jury didn't break and I didn't raise an eyebrow, blah, blah, blah. Costello was either, and he was the Cohen former lawyer. I've heard it saying, people report that was the single most ridiculous thing they've ever seen in a courtroom, his interaction with the judge rolling his eyebrows. I've also heard Dershowitz, and people will slam Allen because Allen calls him like he sees him. He claims that he was in the courtroom, front row seat, and also when they excused the jury, Allen says he was there. They didn't excuse him. And his take on it was that it was one of the most outlandish things for the judge to be excoriating somebody on when the judge was repeatedly sustaining objections. And by the way, if you roll your eyes at the judge, you're going to get that reaction. I'll tell you.
You have some experience with this, I imagine.
We've been on the receiving end, and sometimes it's reflexive. I mean, when you've got somebody who's, in my opinion, to quote my father, carrying the prosecution water, it's hard to restrain yourself, but you're supposed to, and I get that. But Allen's viewpoint of what was happening in that courtroom couldn't be more different than the way it was reported by virtually everybody else. Now, I say that because everybody who's saying poo-pooing the defense's chances and the fact that they're not coherent, or they haven't put together a defense, and they haven't done this, they haven't done that. It's really, that's the problem with an untelevised trial that is kind of predominantly reported on by outlets that have people with a strong viewpoint, or they look at it through their own prism, because that is why when results happen in a courtroom, people are aghast if they haven't actually been watching it.
Yeah. One of the other things that was reported this past week was Michael Cohen, during his testimony, admitted to basically stealing $30,000 from I don't know, was it from the campaign or was it from Trump himself? Basically, he was given $50,000 to pay out to a vendor that was needing to be paid, and he only passed over about 20 of that and kept the rest because he felt that his bonus that year had been lacking. Do you think that's something that's going to play into jury members' opinions of his testimony?
So I am of the firm opinion that whoever you select as the jury at this point in the trial has pretty much made up their mind. I know you get instructed that you're not supposed to. Jurors will tell you they didn't. But my experience, having done hundreds of trials, is that by the time you get to closing argument, jurors who are with you are listening for arguments and pointing out the evidence that supports the belief they have at that point. And this is where the art of jury selection, it's an art, not a science, comes into play, because you don't need 12 people, so to speak, that you're speaking to in closing. You're speaking to whoever it is you think is going to stand on your position, who's going to articulate your position. That's just human nature. You put 12 people in there, it's very rare for 12 people to initially agree unanimously and have that takeaway. There's virtually always going to be 80% of the time some kind of an initial split. And then it comes down to, do you have people who are, who can stand up and take a forceful or leadership position, or are they going to get rolled? And so that's, unless you're there in the courtroom and understand who it is you selected, it's very hard to prognosticate. I will say, and I've told you this before, Gary, that the fact that there are two lawyers by training and a third person who consumes their news from Truth Social, if I'm on the defense, that gives me some modicum of hope that maybe one of the lawyers is going to focus in on the jury instructions, the verdict form. And by the way, I don't say this lightly. Jurors try, but what you have to remember is they try within the experience that they bring into the courtroom. Most jurors, with the exception of what I call, and have been calling for decades, stealth jurors who get on with an agenda, most jurors, as soon as they get sworn, are as serious as you can believe. They understand the consequence. I would be shocked if these jurors didn't understand the magnitude of what they're embarking on. And so I would not say for a second that I assume there are stealth jurors there, but I've already said the fact that they weren't sequestered, the fact of where this trial is happening, and the fact of the timing of this trial, as you do the lead up, the traditional lead up to the political season, the election season, and the fact that this country is as polarized as it can be, I think gives everybody who's looking at this or trying to look at it objectively, gives them some pause.
Yeah, I absolutely would agree. And I think it would be, to your point, I think it would be very hard to not understand the weight of this when you have a very recent former president sitting in the courtroom day in and day out as you listen to the testimony. I would imagine that the weight of it is something that these jurors are keenly aware of.
Right. So if they get the jury closing arguments and jury instructions on Tuesday, and it could bleed into Wednesday. It would not surprise me in the least. Then we're going to see, Gary, do we have the Friday rule?
Yeah. For longtime listeners will know the Friday 2 o'clock, Friday 3 o'clock window is one that juries are very apt to come back with a verdict because they don't want this bleeding into the next week. And these people have been at this for several weeks, and they may well just be tired of this and want to get out of there and get on with their lives. I think that's an interesting time to watch for. Maybe you and I will have to keep an eye on the clock, and maybe we'll fire up a Friday evening podcast if that does in fact come to pass.
Well, I'll tell you that the bewitching hour is almost, I always say it's a Friday, 3 o'clock, right in there.
Yeah.
Right in the sweet spot. It's an hour to an hour and a half after the lunch hour, whenever the lunch hour ends. If they go and by the way, part of kind of the tea leaves and what drives you crazy as a lawyer and a participant in a trial is if you get some jury questions, or if you don't get questions, but you get a request for readback, or you get a request for a particular exhibit that they want to see, or something that is a tape that they want to see, or some kind of assistance. And then you're reading the tea leaves and trying to prognosticate what happens. But I will tell you, if they get the case Tuesday or Wednesday, and then they pass the bewitching hour, if you're the defense, you got to believe that at least you've got somebody fighting for you back there, and you're my belief always is that you're then somewhere close to a hung jury.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be very interesting. I think that you and I should really keep an eye on that, and maybe we can fire something up one way or the other.
And as we leave that topic, we're going to do the bookend for, you have your other bleach blonde clip with a different musical genre.
Yeah, let's give the credit here before we play it. This one is from Tennessee Brando. That's what he goes by on social media, and we'll check out his rendition here.
She's a bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, swinging for the fences, good God almighty. A heat-seeking missile, too scared to debate, cries like a baby when she don't get her way. Yeah, she can dish it out, but she sure can't take it. Her whole damn life, she just fakes it to make it. Nobody cares what she has to say. Some new eyelashes wouldn't help her anyway, 'cause she's a bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, swinging for the fences, good God almighty. A heat-seeking missile, too scared to debate, cries like a baby when she can't get her way. Yeah, she's out there pushing their propaganda. Can't get it done, just blame it on Brandon. She loves to talk tough, throw around her weight. Oh, baby girl, don't even play, 'cause you're a bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, swinging for the fences, good God almighty. A heat-seeking missile, too scared to debate, cries like a baby when she can't get her way. Yeah, she cries like a baby when she don't get her way.
All respect to Rita Brent, but I think that one is probably my favorite. It's pretty great.
Close.
And it's close for sure. It's subjective, but I think they're both great. But Tennessee Brando gets the win in my book, and they're both fantastic.
Yeah, maybe Crockett and Green will do a duet at some point. We can really take it next level in the interest of unifying America.
Absolutely, yeah. And if they do, we'll play it. So look out.
We'll play it here. Gary, have a rest of the day today and Monday, and see you on Tuesday.
You as well, Mark. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Reasonable Doubt. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/Reasonable Doubt Podcast.